Today, I'll introduce a new theme in the weather report, although you might recognize that it just emphasizes my overriding theme from the beginning. In order to understand the weather on the Earth, or just about any other process on the Earth, you have to pull back really, really far to the deepest reaches of space and time. Every drop of rain that falls on your head is caused by phenomena as large as the galaxy. In short, we have to understand the history of our solar system, why and how it was and is currently being formed. You can only get a part of that story by studying what we have access to here on the Earth. To get a more complete story, we have to travel out to the other bodies of the solar system, which preserve other aspects of our changing universe. Only by reading the stories that the other planets had to tell can we understand where we really came from and where we must go. Late Sunday night, something spectacular happened. The Mars Science Laboratory landed on Mars, and the landing was absolutely perfect. The lander, called Curiosity, carries a whole suite of instruments designed to study the history and environment of Mars. Now, although the landing was excellent, the rover hasn't done much yet except for make sure all of its instruments survive the trip and send back a few tantalizing photographs. So what I want to do in this show is to give you a little bit of an idea where Curiosity is and what it will encounter in the course of its voyages over the next few years. Now, here is the first full-resolution image of Curiosity's new home, the floor of Gale Crater. This is where we will begin. 3.5 billion years ago, Mars was still getting pummeled by meteorites. One of those meteorites struck near the present equator of Mars and created Gale Crater. This was a time when liquid water still flowed on the surface of the red planet, which itself may have been partially covered by large seas and oceans. Gale Crater filled with water over time, becoming a lake, with feeder rivers cutting rifts into the crater wall. These rivers also brought foreign sediments into the crater lake, which were deposited on the crater floor over time, creating layers upon layers of sedimentary rock. At a later point, the water receded, revealing the new floor of the filled crater, which then became the target of Martian winds. Winds excavated vast amounts of the sediment laid down by the water, revealing older and older layers, leaving ridges where rivers used to be. The water eventually came back, and the cycle repeated itself several times. Then, for some reason, the liquid water disappeared from the surface of Mars and left Gale Crater forever afterwards, exposed to the slow advance of wind erosion. One of the last series of inundations with floodwater left what's called an alluvial fan of foreign sediments on the crater floor. It's at the edge of this alluvial fan that Curiosity has just landed. Now, this story was only one of several hypotheses about the origins of present-day Gale Crater. The true history could be vastly different than any of the hypotheses. So some important questions to answer are, what happened to all the water? This crater used to be buried. Where did all the sediments go? But the most important question is, was this crater hospitable to life at some point in its history? To determine the history of the crater and then constrain the possible histories of the rest of Mars and the rest of the solar system, it's necessary to take in situ measurements, which is what the Mars Science Laboratory is designed to do. Curiosity's target is Aeolus Mons, also known as Mount Sharp, which you can see here in a topographical map which was developed by the Mars Global Surveyor satellite. You can see Mount Sharp right here in the middle of Gale Crater. Now, the mountain's over 5 kilometers tall, and it's believed to be made of whatever material originally buried the crater. It's the leftover remnants of the burial material. Now, in this image, which is the first full-resolution image taken by Curiosity's mast cams, you can see Mount Sharp in the background. And in the foreground, you can see the shadows of Mount Sharp's foothills. Now, as the rover drives into those foothills, into the canyons of Mount Sharp, we hope that the book of sedimentary rock strata that Curiosity reads will not only reveal the true history of Gale Crater, but also raise the deeper questions about the history of Mars and the history of the solar system itself. So that's it for this episode of the Weather Report, and you can expect updates on what our little rover is doing on the red planet in the next and future shows. Thank you.